right, one more panel to go. I wanted to, I think this is a perfect opportunity for me to show the Men's Wearhouse logo. They will, actually, we're giving a $500 gift card away in the piñata for the Men's Wearhouse, so I'm excited about that, and that leads up to our next and last session, The Perfect Fit, the future of hyper-local brand engagement. And she wanted me to introduce her as the world's greatest shopper, Sandy Berman. Please come on out. Thanks.
Can you hear me? That's better. We're your last panel of the day, and we know that we're the only thing between you and either the piñata or cocktails, depending on how you view the world. So we'll try to make this interesting. Not here today, in addition to your moderator, is Bob Kutnick from Meality, who had a family emergency. And just 30 seconds on Meality. It's a technology and data company, actually, that scans. They have scanners in malls across North America that collects data, and then it'll generate a list of 20 things that are your perfect fit. A lot of genes, which I noticed from our previous panel is pretty much a uniform of being a VC, I think. So that's a little bit about Meality, and I think you can understand how that might be a really disruptive technology in a lot of elements. So we're here to talk about how to bring the big brands and social media tie together. And I'd like to just ask the panel to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they do. So we'll start with you, Rob.
Hi, my name is Rob Reed. I'm the founder of MomentFeed. MomentFeed is a social marketing platform for mobile. What that means is that we bring together Facebook, Foursquare, Twitter, Instagram as an integrated solution designed primarily for multi-location brands, but also pretty much any brand that sells goods through brick and mortar. That's what we do.
My name is Amber Case. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Geoloki.com. One of the big issues that I saw in this whole new market of ambient location is that one, location drains the battery of mobile devices pretty badly. Also, there's accuracy issues. If you want to do really individualized mobile location, that means small geofences around areas and regions, doing more than just sending messages in blast to people, but really integrating with other systems. So we created Geoloki as this building block that allows you to get very personalized location on devices without the battery drain, meaning that we solve a lot of the big edge cases for developers, and then provide real-time analytics for that as well. And that's what we've been building for the last 2.5 years. We have a developer toolkit that you can use, a library that you can just add into any enterprise or development app to get all of that out. And we saw that a lot of people were trying to do this from scratch, and we thought we'd try and solve that problem for them.
Not all discussions belong in social. I'm Rich McKinnon, founder and chief diplomatic officer of MIFT, Private Mobile Feedback. And we enable consumers to have a convenient, universal way of providing private feedback to any business without necessarily embarrassing or hurting the business before they've had a chance to fix the problem for you.
And my name is Joe Nolan. I'm director of new media for Men's Wearhouse, and that encompasses all things related to social business and content marketing.
Okay, thanks. So let's start with Joe. As representing a big brand, Men's Wearhouse is what, 1,700 retail locations and lots of employees. Can you tell us what challenges you face as a big brand and implementing social media and technology?
Sure. Every major retailer faces a unique set of challenges that can really be put into about 4 different categories. The first one is customers. So you have a diverse customer set and customer preferences. Take Men's Wearhouse, for example. We have dozens of thousands of teenagers who come in for tuxedo rentals for prom, but then we have 40-year-old executives who are long-term shoppers with us there for 20 years. So different preferences, very different customers there. The second is prioritizing across our purchase cycle. So pre-purchase, in-store, and then post-purchase. The third is content, and I think we touched on that quite a bit today. What content do customers want? How do brands develop that content? But moreover now, how do brands leverage the content that consumers are creating themselves. And then I think the fourth is technology and teams. There needs to be, the big businesses, we're looking for enterprise-wide technologies that enable small teams to manage many, many properties. So can a team of 20 manage 2,000 locations, but across a variety of channels, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, things like that.
Okay, thanks. Rich, maybe you could offer some thoughts on how you think those challenges can be met and technologies that could help that.
Well, you know, a lot of the focus in the conference so far has been trying to make revenue, and I think that's important. But one of the things that we also need to realize is that when you are in Home Depot, yes, you're there to spend your money, but my personal experience in a lot of stores like that is just actually finding the guy in the orange apron. What I need is service before I can spend my money. And so when I think of hyper-local, I'm thinking of ways that technology can help me in the place of business get past some of the problems between the pure human-to-human interaction that you assume would be happening naturally. So that's simply, where's the guy or the gal that can help me find the thing or explain it to me? You know, think about the technologies we have in place now to deal with that. Like, we can't call them necessarily. What we really want is that walkie-talkie that they all have and call them on their own walkie-talkie, right? And so that's kind of where the idea for MIF came along. It's sort of that walkie-talkie in your hand for any business. So service, I think, is almost as important as revenue.
Okay, thanks. I saw some nods out there that would agree. Amber, how about the geolocal aspect of that?
Well, I'm reminded of this article by architect Paul Ehrlich about he talked about interfaces, and he was basically lambasting interfaces as this really obnoxious thing that people had to deal with. In the architectural world, this was pre-internet, so you didn't have the same thing as interfaces online. He did a study. He'd say, you know, given two ways to get to work, one is 3 hours, but it's straight route. One is 2 hours, but you have to change buses twice. Which one are you going to choose? And even though it's kind of an extreme example, people wanted the route with less uncertainty and less friction because it gave them a guarantee that they'd get at their location. It was the same thing every single day. And there was less time to, you know, get off the bus and maybe the bus was late and get to that place on time. And so I think a lot of adding location to experience allows you to get rid of some of those periods of uncertainty. Like if you walked up to a Walgreens and you had a prescription that was ready and the pharmacist knew that you were walking up, then they could give you the prescription and you'd be not forced to wait for this uncertain period of time, which could be 10 minutes on a good day or 1 hour on a bad day. Just little things like that, allowing you to, you know, reminding you of some favorite item that you saved at some point when you're actually going somewhere. Not giving you the first thing that I get annoyed at is, you know, the drinking game that I've made around walk down the street and get a Starbucks coupon. Like, first off, there's Starbucks all over the place. Everybody already knows where they are. Secondly, if you give somebody a coupon, somebody's going to already go in there and pay full price for that drink. So it's not about giving coupons and reducing the amount of money that people might spend, but reminding them of something that they need to do at a place, or connecting them with some experience that they've already had and reducing that friction.
So I think that's a great suggestion, but how do you eliminate the creepiness factor from that? That, you know, when I'm in the Walgreens picking up my prescription and it says, you know, oh, do you need Kleenex? I'm like, what's your point?
Trying to think of a prescription that necessitates Kleenex. So, I mean, one of the main things is the interfaces are not set up in a way that allows for easy opt-in. You know, right now there needs to be, you know, it's mostly you download an app and says, can this app use your location? There's no granularity. It doesn't say, can I use this part of your location? Can I use your location only when you're at these places? I think there's this whole new era that will occur of geo-cloaking, where basically you say, nothing can use my location from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. while I'm on the way to work or I'm, you know, doing something else. But from these hours and these hours, I'm always looking for a good place to eat lunch. So why don't you suggest something to me? Or, you know, you can have my location at this point. And I think it needs to be part of the OAuth process when somebody downloads an app to say which parts of one's location they're using and the social contract of benefits that they'll get from exchanging that information. If it's not given to the user at that point in time, they're going to be much less likely because it's fuzzy. It's either use location or don't. and that does not solve any of the problems that we're experiencing as we go into an ambient location era.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Rob. Let's talk about the ecosystem that is social local. Can you give us some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Joe and many of his colleagues are dealing with the same set of problems that he outlined, of all these different social networks where customers are engaging while in store, whether it's on Instagram or Foursquare or Facebook or really a whole host of different apps. And we look at that as one channel, as everything customers are doing while they're in store, and try to help brands leverage that as one channel. But the fact is that it is very fragmented. And what we found is that it really is an ecosystem at the local level, more so than it is at the PC level. How we've traditionally managed social has been very siloed. You manage your Facebook, you manage your Twitter, you manage your LinkedIn if you're a brand. But at the local level, they have these unique qualities. Like Facebook is a really good distribution channel. Instagram and Foursquare are really great at creating content that is public and associated with a specific location. Twitter is a really good communication channel with your customers while they're in store. And so you can now leverage those as an ecosystem such that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. I think that's unique to this new channel that we haven't had in the PC era, if you will.
Okay, thank you. All right, so one of the mixed blessings with social media is that you've got this instant exposure, and as we all know, exposure is a double-edged sword. So, Rich, can you comment on how do you get rid of the whiners?
Well, one of the things is sometimes you have to research your market, and sometimes the research comes to you. And as I've worked on MIFT, I've started to hear from people that are the professional critics, people that used to provide us with those critical reviews, whether it's movies or food or hotels. If you think about it, that industry in a way has been displaced by social. And they help me understand a difference between criticism, as in professional criticism, and criticalness, which unfortunately so many of us have mistaken to be the same thing. Criticism comes from a context of a professional person who has expertise in that field and is giving you the information based on their expertise. It's unbiased, and they're trying to paint a full picture for you. Criticalness doesn't have the same level of expertise, and also you may not understand what their motivations are for writing it in the first place. They may actually just be grandstanding, soapboxing. They might be looking for a free steak. You have no idea why they wrote that thing, and so our way of coping with that is to try and read a broad selection of critical feedback to kind of get at what an unbiased report might be. So what I've learned by talking to businesses as a result is they find that when the feedback is provided privately or confidentially, you sort of eliminate the grandstanding component of it, and you're more likely to get at a candid, honest feedback that you can correct through your service.
Okay, thanks. Now, Joe, how do you deal with that at the Men's Warehouse?
I think we deal with it in definitely a best practice methodology, and I'm sure everyone in here has been to several conferences on how to engage in the social media environment and how to perform customer support in social. But something we never see at these conferences is step one is validation. So it's a very different environment on the social web versus someone picking up a phone and calling someone in customer support. The typical customer support teams at major enterprises aren't tethered to the customer support database to validate whether someone, what they're stating in a public forum is true or not. And complaints in social, are very different. They have other challenges, speed, visibility, etc. So our teams we're tethered very closely with customer support. Customer support goes through extensive social media training, as well as our team going through customer support training. And then, we tether the back end on the workflow and the databases as well. So that's how we handle customer support instances coming through social. I would just caution everyone in here that step one for your organization is definitely validate. Don't admit blame online if you don't know if you've committed a fault or if your organization had done something wrong. I've found over the last 5-6 years doing this, oftentimes the companies are trying to do the right thing, and the people in the stores are trying to do the right thing.
Okay.
One of the things we discussed over lunch is the reason why a lot of businesses look to Twitter and Facebook as a way for dealing with some of the negative feedback is because really there isn't an alternative for the consumers to provide the negative feedback. Ideally, if you're as a chief marketing officer, you would prefer to deal with some of that conversation privately if you could. But if you think about it, look at most websites. It says, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, whether you're dissatisfied or happy with us, essentially, is the implied message. We want you to go to these two places. They don't really provide you with a place to go if you're dissatisfied, except in the case of QSRs. If you notice, it's an 800 number often, which is where nobody wants to go if they're dissatisfied.
Okay. We have about 10 minutes left, and if people have questions, if they want to start coming to the mic, that would be great, because we would love to hear your questions. I have a few more myself. And how about with you, Rob? How do you think about leveraging the customer at the point of purchase?
Well, I mean, the thing about this new social paradigm on mobile is that it is so close to the point of sale. And that is really a game changer. I mean, you now have the ability to affect a purchase decision or to increase basket size through these social channels. Whereas in the PC era, it was consumers sitting in front of computers at home or at work. And now that's shifted into the real world, and I think that it's almost the Foursquare era. In a way, not that Foursquare is the dominant player, but it's what Foursquare represents in terms of the check-in, the location-based engagement. And I think brands really need to look at that type of CRM at the local level and the segmentation at the local level that can really drive actual sales. And we've seen recent data with some partners that we work with in LA that Facebook check-ins and Foursquare check-ins are correlating almost perfectly to sales data. They are so statistically significant that the more people who walk in the door, the more people who check in, the more people who buy stuff. And it's 0.91 correlation, which 1.0 being perfect. So you should really pay attention to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I completely agree. When I think about the early web and you started to have conversions and funnels and things like that, you'd say, okay, this person went to the store and then, and they clicked on this and eventually that's a conversion. You start to label conversions. Suddenly with things like geofencing, you have these invisible buttons. And when somebody goes into that button, it's clicked and you can have some action happen on the back end that says, okay, you sent this person a message. It doesn't even have to be location based. Does that increase or decrease that person's likelihood to enter that store over the next 3 months, where the store set is, a giant factual database of all the stores, in the United States, where you suddenly be able to have these conversions in the real world that you would have only been able to have online before. And I think where you connect the real world and the digital world is really important. And now people are finally being able to do that. And it's also important to be able to do it for groups of people that don't use Foursquare and don't use Facebook check-ins, where it happens ambiently, where the check-in is just smooth and invisible, where that interface no longer exists. You don't have to have the activation energy or remembering to check into that place. It's just smooth and seamless.
Okay. So I'll ask this question of everybody, but let's start with Joe. What's your wish list for technology?
I think, first, major brands, especially retailers, auto, any places with a brick location, we are adamant about trying to figure out social and location. I think right now we have these great plans that look awesome on a dry erase board, but we need the technology that can facilitate the business, facilitate that social engagement across those channels. I would say we evaluate these technologies all the time. There's probably less than 5 that we would, at this point, that we would consider, but there's still lacking, I think, in the granularity across channels. For example, Twitter, not just @mentions, but the 5 different misspellings of Men's Wearhouse. You know, so we're essentially missing half the volume, or 70% of volume, if a platform can't perform a Twitter search and include, in addition, an @mention. So it's things like that and the attention to detail from these bigger solutions that major retail brands are looking for.
And do the solutions scale?
Well, I think that's a great point. I think right now we have not found a solution that enables a small team, 20 or less, even 100 or less, to manage thousands of locations. I think the platforms are going there. Everyone keeps telling us that. But for the life of me, I can't figure out why no one's built it now. Because we have 1,400 stores and a team, if we have a team of 20 or 30, how are we able to aggregate that to 20 desktops, 20 mobile phones, so that we can support all that interaction? And that's what's missing right now in the social marketplace.
All right, Rich, I don't know if you wanted to talk about your wish list.
I don't have a wish list for technology because I think the technology comes. That's the thing that's probably most reliable in our business, is there's always new technology every day. I have a wish list for business, on the business side. That's usually the hardest part in a company.
The people, really?
The people, the business, that's right. And I'd like to begin with, I wish that businesses would take a look at the way that they are dealing with their customers and identify the barriers to listening. A classic barrier to listening is a call center. It's really set up to prevent people from talking to the people that they're supposed to talk to. That's a barrier to listening. Another barrier to listening is one of those self-serve customer support forums where you talk to each other as opposed to talking to actual people that know the answers. If you look carefully at your company, there are so many barriers to listening. I think my top wish list is to get rid of those barriers and put yourself in a position to listen, and then you're in a position to be able to help and provide the service that your customers want.
Okay. Amber, do you have a wish list?
I would like more quadricopters that are cheaper and affordable. But other than that, since quadricopters are really noisy and hard to use in store, I have a problem with 2 things. One, there's a lot of people out there doing the exact same thing as everybody else, where something, say, on Instagram becomes very popular, and then everyone says, well, I'll do that, instead of saying, what are the real problems we need to actually solve? It's not another social network for people who like pandas. It's a social network that is none of those. It's you know, it's funny because I see these programmers, they're like, I'm going to build X or Y, where X or Y is something that already exists. But yet on their way to work or in their everyday lives, they come across something that's obnoxious and annoying. They say, oh, how obnoxious and annoying, and then they go on with their lives instead of saying, oh no, that's obnoxious and annoying. That's a problem that I need to solve. The mundane issues that nobody thinks about, the boring solutions that might seem really simple are the most important things to solve. And so, you know, when we started Geoloki, it was, here is a really boring problem to most people that's probably not very exciting, but damn, it's exciting to work on this problem because it means something, you know? And so I think that's one of the big issues. The other one is, you know, people building all these things when the thing has already been built. Some companies do something really well, and other companies say, well, we need to build something like this, and here's our core product, but now we need analytics because customer X wants analytics, instead of going to that company, partnering and doing an integration. So I see more and more as this market's really frothy right now. I see more and more kind of consolidation along partnerships and making these projects modular so that, you know, you get a kind of Lego block system. And I think that's where there's a lot of opportunity, that, you know, companies will no longer be this, there'll be this core element, and then they'll have these add-ons where the data can talk to each other. And I guess the last thing is that people keep doing the same technological things that they think will work, and they keep presenting it. We were talking about this with Men's Wearhouse. All of these beacon wireless indoor location companies come in, and they try to pitch these big box stores. They try to pitch Men's Wearhouse, And it doesn't make any sense, right? Because you don't have the amount of money to install a bunch of beacons. It doesn't scale across all sorts of places. At a place like Men's Warehouse, if somebody's already going in to buy something, they don't need 20% off. And really, the best person for the job is literally a person, not a computer, not a technology solution. It's hire a guy that greets you at the door, leads you through the store, has embodied knowledge about all the newest brands, and that's a much better program than, the program inside a machine, that's made by a startup that will be around for 6 months and then go away, that, you as a big company have to sponsor the development of, right? It just makes me upset that sometimes people say, well, let's do this giant system, when in reality people are really good at doing certain things, and people need to kind of separate it out. People are good at doing certain things, machines are good at doing certain things, let's combine them in a clever way. Instead, they do the same thing that fails again and again, and I mean there's a graveyard of these companies out there. So I hope that people learn from history, although they usually don't. There's an Esther Dyson newsletter from the 90s that everyone should read, which is all of these companies that did the same thing and it didn't work out. But they're doing the same thing again 10, 20 years later.
There's a Peter Drucker monograph from the 60s.
And they all have funding again.
So we're just about to end, but we'll let you have a minute or 20 seconds to give your wish list, because we're getting the king.
So we do an optimization process for Facebook pages and place pages and Foursquare venues, where it's a cleanup of duplicates and making sure all the data is accurate. And when we did that with Cinnabon, we noticed that the kind of bonus was that more people were checking in as a result of it. And we attributed that to a reduce in friction. So when you were standing in front of the Cinnabon and you wanted to check in, the first venue that came up was that Cinnabon, and there was only one venue that came up. So I think our wish list for technology is just more and better ways to reduce that friction between consumers engaging with the brand in their store. And so that's going to come from better handsets, better connectivity, and just more seamlessness there.
So thank you all so much. I think it's a great opportunity to see kind of how these things are getting together. I saw firsthand when Amber and Rob met, and they started talking about, well, now what you do, okay, we're going to, this little shorthand protocol discussion of how they're going to figure out how to work together, and hopefully there's a lot of that going on at this session today. So thank you very much, panelists, and I think we're ready for Mark to come out. So thank you.